Unless you're a complete sociopath and a narcissist, odds are that you have imposter syndrome. And you know what? Everybody does. Even the narcissists sometimes have an imposter syndrome. The key to imposter syndrome is not to fight it. And this is something that people find very difficult to understand. The key to imposter syndrome is to own it. In this video, I'm going to tell you about my experiences with imposter syndrome and three techniques I have kind of figured out of what to do when you have imposter syndrome and how to use it to your benefit and how to use it to make you more successful. So around COVID, before COVID, I was in like college and it was physical college. I was in my first or second year in college and everybody was exactly the same. You know, if you're in your first or second year in college, basically everybody has the same hobbies, goes to the same clubs, does the same parties, does the same college committees, etc., etc. Gets approximately the same grades and has the same amount of knowledge. But what happened is during COVID, we saw a huge phase shift. So for my story personally, I kind of completely lost interest in college. And I completely lost interest in being the same as everyone else. And I completely decided, let me just own my thing and do whatever I wanted. So I started a small company. I started like 4 or 5 random small side businesses and all of them failed. But then I started a podcast. And this podcast started doing well, not in terms of view count, but in terms of quality of guest. We got a lot of guests from different parts of the world, especially who were like founders of like $100 million+ companies. And honestly, even I'm not sure till date why those founders wanted to come on my podcast. Maybe we had kind of created a system of social proof where every podcast guest, we would kind of urge them to post on LinkedIn about the podcast and how they liked working with us. And probably that's what kind of encouraged the next guest to come to us, right? A lot of our guests were coming inbound, and it was very, very validating to see that, CEOs of $100 million companies are DMing me to come on my podcast inbound. What started happening is the first time I did the podcast, a lot of my classmates attended it, right? A lot of my classmates attended the podcast, and I truly felt great. I truly, not because I felt like I was better than them, but I actually felt like I was providing value to them. They actually asked a lot of questions to the podcast guests. They actually, talked to the podcast guests, gained insight, and all of them at the end of the podcast told me, "Thank you so much for doing this." At this point of time, my imposter syndrome started kicking in. And this is the first time where I had ever felt imposter syndrome in my whole life. Before this, I was a child. Even though I had some small achievements here and there, it really wasn't anything. And as a child, you don't really have imposter syndrome anyways. At this point of time, I'm starting to see that I'm getting job offers that are already beyond probably 1.5 times of the college placement. And I kind of realized that, maybe something is going in a different path. Maybe I'm not the one who's in control of all of this. And everybody, when you start achieving something even minor, you start attributing it to factors that are not actually the factors. You'll see a lot of successful people saying that the reason they became successful was because they worked hard. And probably 95% of the times it's not that, right? And for me, the reason where I felt I was successful, of course, was hard work. Everybody thinks that they're successful because they work hard. And the second reason I thought I was like becoming slightly successful, and I still to the date think that that's the reason for wherever I've reached, is because of luck. And and the fact that I would keep getting lucky over and over again, the fact that everything would always work out for me bothered me. I would be so bothered by the fact that, there are people who don't have food to eat, there are people who are always unlucky, and I'm just getting lucky over and over again. I've been in quite a few life threatening situations, and by God's grace or by some sort of luck, I get saved. At this point of time, my imposter syndrome kind of led me to shutting the whole thing down and stop for about a 6 month period. But then I kind of figured out these other strategies of how to tackle the imposter syndrome. The first thing, and as you see in this video, is that I talk about it openly. Now, there are two reasons for do this. One, people eat that shit up like cake. And especially when I'm talking to a boss or a client and I tell him, listen, I kind of feeling this imposter syndrome because you're offering me this amount of money and I don't feel like I'm worth it. The whole conversation kind of shifts into why you're worth it, why you're good, and it becomes like a reassuring frame. And it's not that I need constant reassurance. It's just that the fact that I'm open about my emotions and that I'm open about my feelings puts me in a position of vulnerability, puts me in a position where the boss or the client can actually, feel like, oh, this guy's not that smart. And putting yourself in that position is honestly what kind of helps taking you forward. You'll always see those guys who, whenever something bothers them, they'll actually tell you. And then on the other hand, you'll see guys who, when something bothers them, they'll never say it, they'll just be quiet. And everybody always is attracted to the guy who is very open about how he's feeling. If you do something to someone that they don't like, you want them to tell you that they don't like it. The next thing is to be humble. And imposter syndrome is what keeps you humble. I have truly suffered from not being humble. I was extremely overconfident when things started working out. I truly didn't treat people well. Sometimes, even till date, I really suffer from like overconfidence and not treating people well. But then let me tell you a story that happened probably just 3 days ago. So I was sitting in a rickshaw. It was just like a 5 minute rickshaw. I had too many bags and I didn't feel like walking that much. And the rickshawala or the guy who's driving the rickshaw kind of started quoting a religious text. He told me that, when a mango tree grows mango fruits, it starts bending. And when a tree grows thorns, it becomes big. And and this taught me two things. The first thing it taught me is that everybody has philosophical inclination. So the fact that I have philosophical inclination, or the fact that you have philosophical inclination, does not make you unique. But the second thing that this taught me is that you can learn something from everybody. Just a few hours before this, I was extremely overconfident. I posted something on social media that was extremely cocky and made me look like an absolute asshole, but I felt great about it because I was showing off, not just, I was just showing off all sorts of material aspects in my life. And honestly, I'm so glad that this rickshawala said this to me. And he said it in Sanskrit and then translated it to me in Hindi and kind of explained it to me. It was just like a 5 minute rickshaw. So there's not much of explaining he could do. But even though I'm not a big fan of reading religious texts, I do want to do it at some point of time, but I don't want to do it right now. It's definitely something that is with me till now. It's definitely something that I think about all the time. In fact, I even posted about it on Twitter, and a lot of people like the fact that I posted this on Twitter. The third thing, and this is kind of counterintuitive, is to be extremely self critical. See, you can lie to everyone in the world. You can tell everyone in the world that you have $1 million in your bank account, but you can't lie to yourself. And the problems in life, every single problem that we have in life, kind of stems to the fact that we've been lying to ourselves at some point or the other. And essentially, the imposter syndrome is this self-critical nature of yours kicking in. So what I do is I'm extremely self-critical. I will, in fact, even this video, after it goes live, I'll be watching it and I'll see how can I improve my speech. Forget that, I'll be critical of my own thoughts, my own emotions. Sometimes when I look at someone, I feel really disgusted by them, and I always look down upon them. And I've realized that this is not good thoughts, right? It's not helping me in the long run. I don't know where these thoughts are coming from, what trauma or what event happened in my childhood that makes me have these thoughts. But I am extremely self-critical of myself. I always picture there's a third person over here who's watching me at all points of time, and what is he thinking if he can read my mind. And imposter syndrome kind of helps fuel this. I hope this video kind of helped you with your imposter syndrome. Now, the objective of imposter syndrome is not to fight it. See, becoming wildly successful once for a short period of time is not that rare. It happens a lot. A lot of people will make some small amount of money, maybe through a crypto rug pull, or maybe doing drop shipping or day trading or something. But the difficult part is like sustaining it. The difficult part is to keep it going for a long period of time. And this is where the imposter syndrome is going to help you. This is where having that self-critical mindset and always observing your thoughts is going to help you. I'm not much of a motivational speaker. I'm not much of any of those. But I hope this video helped you in that aspect of your life. Thank you.